The crystalline towers of Novo San Francisco gleamed under the artificial atmosphere dome, their bioluminescent surfaces pulsing with the rhythm of a city that had learned to heal itself. In the year 2147, humanity had emerged from the ashes of the great environmental collapse, rebuilding not just their world, but their very understanding of what it meant to be alive. Dr. Lin Tran stood before the massive biovisualization wall in her laboratory at the Hologen Research Institute, watching clusters of cells dance in perfect synchronization. At 35, she had already revolutionized the field of regenerative biology 3 times over, but today felt different. Today, the cells seemed to whisper secrets she had never heard before. Computer magnify Sector 7 by factor of 50. She commanded her Vietnamese accent barely noticeable after years of international collaboration. The display zoomed in on a cluster of cells that defied everything she thought she knew about human biology. These weren't just regenerating. They were evolving in real time, adapting to damage faster than any organic system should be capable of. Her research into microcell X had started as a simple attempt to accelerate wound healing. What she had discovered was far more profound. Human cells possessed an untapped potential for regeneration that made the mythical phoenix look mundane by comparison. The cells could not only repair damage, but could enhance the original tissue, making it stronger, more resilient, more adaptive. A soft chime echoed through the laboratory, followed by the holographic appearance of her assistant, Mai Truk. Dr. Tran, the intergalactic medical conference delegates have arrived at the orbital station. The opening ceremony begins in 2 hours. Lin sighed, glancing at her reflection in the dark screen. Her long black hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her lab coat bore the subtle stains of someone who spent more time with microscopes than mirrors. Have they released the delegate list? Yes, and it's extensive. Representatives from 43 civilizations, including the Zetar-9 Galactic Alliance leadership. The Argathians are sending their top quantum physicists, and there's even a delegation from the Silicon Collective. The mention of the Zetar-9 Alliance made Lin's stomach tighten. For the past 50 years, Earth had been treated as a backwater planet by the galactic community. Humans were seen as fragile biologicals, a term that had become synonymous with weakness among the stars. Despite humanity's impressive technological advances, their organic bodies were considered inferior to the silicon-based collectives, the energy forms of Proxima Centauri, and the crystalline structures of the Zetar systems. Dr. Tran Mai continued, her expression growing serious. I should warn you that several delegates have already made public statements about human biological limitations. Senator Crickstall from Argathia called our species charmingly primitive in yesterday's galactic broadcast. Lin felt a familiar fire kindle in her chest. It was the same feeling that had driven her through 7 years of medical school, 4 years of specialized training, and countless nights of research. Then, perhaps it's time they learned what human fragility really means. 2 hours later, Lin stood in the presentation chamber of the Orbital Conference Station, a massive structure that orbited Earth like a technological moon. The chamber was designed to accommodate the diverse physiological needs of 43 different species, creating an almost surreal atmosphere where beings of crystal metal energy and flesh mingled in an impossible harmony. The presentation stage rose from the center of the chamber like a transparent crystal, allowing 3-dimensional projections to be visible from every angle. Lin had requested to go last among the human presenters, knowing that first impressions from her species had rarely been favorable. Dr. Raun Vec, the lead medical officer from Argathia, was concluding his presentation on quantum cellular manipulation. His tall, blue-skinned form moved with the fluid grace of his people, each gesture accompanied by small displays of bioelectric energy that danced around his fingers. As you can see, he said, his voice carrying the harmonic overtones that all Argathians possessed. True cellular regeneration requires quantum manipulation at the subatomic level. Organic species simply lack the neurological complexity to achieve such precise control. They must rely on crude chemical processes that take days or weeks to achieve what we accomplish in minutes. A wave of what Lynn could only describe as alien laughter rippled through the chamber. The sound came from dozens of different species, each expressing amusement in their own way. The crystal beings chimed like wind bells. The energy forms pulsed with rapid color changes, and the more humanoid species simply smiled or made sounds remarkably similar to human laughter. Senator Crickstall, a particularly imposing Argathian, whose bioelectric aura crackled with authority, spoke from his elevated platform. Dr. Envec raises an excellent point. While we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm for joining galactic medicine, we must be realistic about biological limitations. Humans with their single-strand DNA and linear thinking patterns cannot hope to achieve the regenerative capabilities we take for granted. More laughter this time, with an edge that Lynn recognized as a condescension. She had heard variations of this speech her entire career, first from professors who thought a Vietnamese woman couldn't master advanced genetics, then from colleagues who thought her theories were too radical, and now from alien civilizations who thought her entire species was too primitive. Perhaps, Senator Crickstall continued, Earth would be better served focusing on prosthetics and artificial enhancement rather than attempting true biological regeneration. Leave the real medicine to those equipped for it. The chamber fell silent as Lynn stepped onto the presentation platform. The crystal floor hummed beneath her feet, responding to her biosignature and adjusting its display parameters for human physiology. She looked out at the assembled delegates, beings of incredible diversity and obvious intelligence, and felt that familiar fire transform into something else entirely. Honored delegates! She began, her voice amplified by the chamber's acoustic systems to reach every corner of the vast space. I am Dr. Lynn Tran of the Hologen Research Institute, and I'm here to present our research into human cellular regeneration. I want to begin by thanking Senator Crickstall for his educational remarks about human limitations. A subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere suggested that her tone had been noted by the translation systems and conveyed appropriately across species barriers. For the past 7 years, I've been working with something we call microcell X, an enhancement process that unlocks latent regenerative capabilities within human cellular structure. Now I know what you're thinking. She gestured toward the Argathian delegation. How can a species with single-strand DNA and linear thinking patterns possibly achieve true regeneration? The presentation stage around her came alive with 3-dimensional models of human cells, their structures rotating slowly in the air. But these weren't ordinary cells. They pulsed with an inner light, their molecular structures shifting and adapting in real time. The answer lies in a fundamental misunderstanding about human biology. You see what you call limitations, we call potential. Our DNA isn't single-strand because we're primitive. It's single-strand because it's modular. Every human carries dormant genetic sequences that activate only under extreme stress or specific stimulation. She gestured, and the cell models began to demonstrate rapid regeneration, growing new structures and repairing damage at speeds that visibly impressed even the most advanced delegates. Microcell X doesn't add anything to human cells, it simply wakes them up. Dr. Envec leaned forward in his seat, his bioelectric aura flickering with interest. Impressive visuals, Dr. Tran, but surely these are theoretical models. No organic system can achieve regeneration at those speeds without quantum manipulation. Lynn smiled. I was hoping you'd ask for a demonstration. She reached into her lab coat and withdrew a small device that looked like a pen with a crystalline tip. Without hesitation, she activated it and drew it across her left forearm, creating a cut deep enough that several delegates gasped in alarm. Blood welled up, immediately staining her white lab coat. Computer, begin microcell X application sequence, she said calmly, despite the pain shooting up her arm. A soft blue mist emerged from hidden emitters in the presentation platform surrounding the wound. The assembled delegates watched in absolute silence. As something impossible happened, the cut began to close. Not slowly, as wounds typically heal, but visibly, like watching a film in reverse. New skin formed from the edge's inward blood vessels, reconnected with tiny sparks of bioelectric activity, and within 30 seconds, her arm was completely healed. But that wasn't the impressive part. "Computer, analyze the regenerated tissue," Lynn commanded. A holographic display appeared, showing cellular scans of her arm. The new tissue wasn't just healed, it was improved. The skin was more resilient, the blood vessels more efficient, the nerve connections more sophisticated than the original. The chamber erupted. Not in laughter this time, but in a cacophony of excited communication across dozens of species. The crystal beings chimed in harmonic patterns that their translators identified as scientific fascination. The energy forms pulsed so rapidly that their containment fields had to adjust to prevent interference with the station systems. Senator Crickstall's bioelectric aura had gone completely still, a sign of deep shock among his people. That's impossible. Organic regeneration cannot exceed the original tissue specifications without external quantum manipulation. "You're right," Lynn said, holding up her perfectly healed arm. "It can't. Which is why we've spent 7 years learning that humans aren't entirely organic." The silence that followed was so complete that Lynn could hear the hum of the station's gravity generators. "Explain," Senator Crickstall said, his harmonic voice carrying only one tone, the universal expression of scientific curiosity. Lynn gestured, and the presentation space filled with a complex three-dimensional model of human DNA. "Every human carries what we've called ghost sequences, genetic information that doesn't express under normal circumstances. We thought they were evolutionary remnants, junk DNA left over from our species' development." The DNA model began to highlight specific sequences in blue light. "We were wrong. These sequences aren't remnants. They're potential. Under the right conditions, they activate and guide cellular regeneration beyond anything we thought possible. The microcell X process doesn't enhance human biology. It reveals what we really are." Dr. Envec had risen from his seat and was approaching the presentation platform. "Dr. Tran, are you suggesting that humans possess quantum regenerative capabilities naturally?" "I'm not suggesting it," Lynn replied. "I'm proving it. The question isn't why humans can do this, it's why it took us so long to figure out how." What happened next changed everything. An alarm began to sound throughout the station. Not the gentle chimes used for announcements, but the harsh, urgent tone reserved for biological emergencies. The chamber's lighting shifted to a yellow alert status, and automated systems began announcing in multiple languages, "Biological contamination detected. All delegates report to designated safe areas immediately." Station Commander Walsh, a veteran of Earth's Orbital Defense Corps, appeared via hologram in the center of the chamber. Her usually calm expression was tight with concern. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored delegates, we have a situation. Approximately 30 minutes ago, a sample containment breach occurred in Laboratory Bay 7. The sample was of unknown origin, brought by the Argathian delegation for research purposes." Senator Crickstall's bioelectric aura flared with alarm. "The Kepler-7 pathogen. That container was supposed to be impermeable." "The what?" Commander Walsh asked, her face going pale. Dr. Envec stepped forward, his usually controlled demeanor showing cracks of panic. "Kepler-7 pathogen, a cellular degradation agent we discovered on a dead world in our sector. We brought it here for collaborative research into biological weapons defense. It breaks down organic matter at the molecular level." The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates began activating personal force fields, emergency containment protocols, and in some cases preparing to evacuate to their ships. The organic species looked terrified, while the non-organic ones seemed merely concerned. "How fast does it spread?" Commander Walsh demanded. "In laboratory conditions, it consumed a test sample of Argathian tissue in approximately 4 hours," Dr. Envec replied. But that was a controlled environment, an open atmosphere with multiple organic species present. He didn't need to finish. Everyone understood. Lynn felt her mind racing. "Commander, do we have any infected personnel?" 3 researchers in Bay 7 were exposed. They're in medical quarantine, but... Commander Walsh's voice trailed off as she received new information through her neural implant. "Dr. Tran, the infection is accelerating. We're looking at complete tissue breakdown within 2 hours." "Can we evacuate the station?" Senator Crickstall asked. "Not without risking contamination of Earth's surface," Commander Walsh replied grimly. "And the 3 infected personnel can't be moved." The chamber fell silent except for the continued emergency alarms. Lynn looked around at the assembled delegates, brilliant minds from across the galaxy, all staring at a problem that seemed to have no solution. 3 people were going to die and possibly more if the contamination spread. Unless... Commander Lynn said, her voice cutting through the alarm sounds. "I need access to Laboratory Bay 7. Dr. Tran, that's a contamination zone. No one can go in there without proper isolation gear, and even then..." "I don't need isolation gear," Lynn interrupted. "I need a direct interface with the station's emergency systems, and about 5 minutes to prepare Microcell X for mass deployment." Dr. Invec turned to stare at her. "Dr. Tran, with respect, this pathogen breaks down organic matter at the quantum level. Your regeneration process, however impressive, cannot possibly counteract molecular dissolution." Lynn was already moving toward the chamber's emergency access panel. "Dr. Invec, 5 minutes ago you would have said that organic regeneration couldn't exceed original tissue specifications. How many other things do you think you're wrong about?" Senator Crickstall's bioelectric aura flickered with what his species' body language indicated was urgent consideration. "Dr. Tran, even if your process could counteract the pathogen, you would need to treat the victims directly. That would require entering the contamination zone yourself." "Yes," Lynn said simply, as she accessed the emergency systems and began uploading the Microcell X protocols. "It would." The chamber erupted in protests from multiple species, but Lynn barely heard them. She was focused on the problem: 3 people dying of cellular degradation, a pathogen that broke down organic matter at the quantum level, and a regeneration process that had never been tested against anything like this. It should have been impossible. Any rational analysis would conclude that she was about to commit elaborate suicide while accomplishing nothing. But rational analysis had also concluded that human biology couldn't achieve true regeneration, and she had just proven that spectacularly wrong. "Dr. Tran," Commander Walsh said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to life or death decisions. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Lynn looked up from the emergency panel where streams of data were flowing as the station systems processed the Microcell X protocols. "Commander, I'm not certain about anything, but 3 people are dying and I'm the only person here who might be able to save them. That's enough." Before anyone could stop her, she was running toward the emergency access corridor that led to Laboratory Bay 7. The corridor leading to Bay 7 was eerily quiet after the chaos of the conference chamber. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows on the walls, and automated warnings played on repeat: "Biological contamination zone ahead. Authorized personnel only. Full isolation protocols required." Lynn ignored them all. She had uploaded the Microcell X protocols to the station's medical systems, but the process had never been tested for pathogen resistance. She was about to become her own test subject. The airlock to Bay 7 should have required authorization codes, contamination suits, and a 15-minute preparation process. Instead, Lynn overrode the systems with her research credentials and walked straight through. The laboratory was a disaster. Equipment lay scattered across the floor, some of it partially dissolved where the pathogen had made contact. In the center of the room, 3 research technicians lay on emergency medical beds, their bodies covered with spreading patches of what looked like accelerated decay. The nearest technician, a young woman who couldn't have been more than 25, looked up as Lynn entered. Doctor, we can't." The medicine isn't working. It's spreading too fast. Lynn knelt beside the bed and took the woman's hand, feeling the unnatural coldness, where the pathogen was breaking down cellular structure. What's your name? Sarah Kim. I was a xenobiology student. This was supposed to be just an observation shift. Well, Sarah Kim, you're about to help make medical history, Lynn said, pulling out her microcell X injector. I'm going to give you something that's never been tested against this kind of pathogen. It's either going to save your life or kill you faster. Sarah managed a weak smile. Those are better odds than I have now. Lynn administered the injection, then moved to the other two patients. Both were unconscious, their conditions more advanced. She injected them as well, then stepped back and activated her communicator. Commander Walsh, this is Dr. Tran. I've administered microcell X to all three patients, beginning monitoring phase. Dr. Tran, the entire conference is watching through the lab's monitoring systems. Are you sure you don't want to evacuate while we wait for results? Lynn looked around the contaminated laboratory. Every surface showed signs of pathogen exposure. The air itself was probably saturated with the organism. Commander, if microcell X can't handle this environment, then the patients don't have a chance anyway. I'm staying. What happened next took 5 hours and changed the course of human history. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The pathogen continued to spread across the patients' bodies, and Lynn began to worry that she had simply accelerated their deaths. But then, 20 minutes after the injection, something changed. Sarah Kim's breathing, which had been shallow and labored, began to steady. The patches of decay on her skin stopped spreading, and then, impossibly, they began to shrink. Dr. Tran, Sarah whispered, looking at her own hands with amazement. I can feel it working. It's like my body is fighting back. But it was more than fighting back. As the hours passed, Lynn watched in amazement as the microcell X didn't just counteract the pathogen. It used the pathogen's own quantum disruption as fuel for regeneration. Where the organism tried to break down cellular structure, the enhanced human cells rebuilt themselves stronger. Where it attempted to dissolve tissue, new tissue grew with improved resistance. The other two patients recovered more slowly, but recover they did. By the end of the 5th hour, all three were not only healthy, but showed enhanced biological function across every measurable metric. Their immune systems had been strengthened, their cellular regeneration had been permanently enhanced, and their bodies now carried resistance to quantum-level biological weapons. But the most remarkable change was in Lynn herself. During those 5 hours in the contaminated environment, she had been exposed to levels of the pathogen that should have killed her within minutes. Instead, her body had adapted continuously, developing new resistances in real time. By the time the lab was declared safe, she had become immune not just to the Kepler-7 pathogen, but to an entire class of biological weapons that the Argathians had considered absolutely lethal to organic life. The conference chamber had been transformed into an impromptu medical monitoring station. Delegates from 43 civilizations watched in amazement as real-time biological scans showed impossible readings from the contaminated laboratory. Dr. Invek, whose usual composure had been completely abandoned, was staring at the data streams in disbelief. This shouldn't be possible. The pathogen was designed to break down organic matter at the quantum level. Nothing biological should be able to resist it, let alone use it as enhancement fuel. Senator Krickstall had been silent for the past hour, his bioelectric aura flickering in patterns that indicated deep contemplation. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Tran, when you said that humans weren't entirely organic, what exactly did you mean? Lynn, speaking through the laboratory's communication system, while she monitored the patients, answered thoughtfully. Senator, we've always assumed that evolution was a random process, that species developed based on environmental pressures and genetic drift. But what if some species evolved with a purpose? What if humans were designed to be adaptable? The chamber fell silent. Designed by whom? asked crystalline speaker harmony, whose species communicated through harmonic resonance in their crystal structure. That's the question, isn't it? Lin replied. All I know is that human DNA contains information that only activates under extreme circumstances. The more stress we face, the more capabilities we unlock. It's like our entire species is a biological Swiss Army knife waiting for the right situation to reveal its tools. Commander Walsh, who had been coordinating the emergency response, stepped forward. Dr. Tran, the contamination levels are dropping rapidly. Whatever you've done in there, it's not just healing the patients. It's actively neutralizing the pathogen. That's because the enhanced human cells aren't just resistant to the pathogen, Lin explained. They're converting it into useful biomass. Sarah Kim's immune system is now producing antibodies that could potentially immunize entire populations against quantum biological weapons. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a wave. For decades, quantum biological weapons had been considered the ultimate threat to organic species. The ability to break down matter at the molecular level had made them the deterrent of choice for several galactic powers. If humans could not only resist such weapons, but convert them into beneficial enhancement. Dr. Tran, Senator Krickstall said slowly, on behalf of the Argathian delegation, I formally apologize for our previous assessment of human biological capabilities. And, added Dr. Envec, I would like to request immediate collaboration on understanding how this regeneration process works. If we could replicate this capability across other organic species. Lin smiled, though the delegates couldn't see it through the laboratory's monitoring system. Dr. Envec, I'd be happy to collaborate. But I think you should know, what you've seen today isn't the limit of human regenerative capability. It's just the beginning. Over the following weeks, as the conference continued in an atmosphere of completely changed priorities, the implications of Dr. Lin Tran's demonstration became clear. Earth, which had been considered a backwater planet, populated by fragile biologicals, was suddenly the most important research center in the galaxy. The ability to not only regenerate damaged tissue, but to adapt and improve in response to threats, revolutionized everything from medical science to military strategy. But perhaps more importantly, it changed how other species viewed humanity. The condescending attitude toward primitive organics was replaced by fascination and respect. Humans weren't fragile. They were anti-fragile, growing stronger from everything that tried to destroy them. Dr. Envec became Lin's primary research partner, working to understand the quantum mechanics behind human regeneration. Their collaboration led to breakthroughs in treating previously incurable diseases across multiple species. Alan Zitor, the quantum physicist from Argathia, joined their team and discovered that human consciousness itself played a role in directing cellular regeneration. The famous human willpower wasn't just psychological, but quantum biological. Truk, meanwhile, had developed the drone delivery system that would eventually allow microcell X treatment to be administered on a planetary scale. Her work became the foundation for the Galactic Emergency Medical Response System, capable of treating biological crises across entire star systems. The Zadar-9 Galactic Alliance faced a crisis of their own. Their entire political structure had been based on the assumption that some species were naturally superior to others. The discovery that humans possessed capabilities that exceeded even the most advanced civilizations forced a complete re-evaluation of galactic society. Senator Krickstall found himself in the unusual position of advocating for a species he had previously dismissed. His bioelectric aura now pulsed with patterns that indicated deep respect whenever he spoke about human capabilities. "We have made a fundamental error," he said, during one of the Alliance Council sessions. "We assumed that advancement meant abandoning organic biology. Humans have shown us that the opposite may be true, that true advancement means perfecting it." But the most significant change came from an unexpected source. 6 months after the conference, as Earth was being formally inducted into the Galactic Alliance as a full research partner, Lin made another discovery. While analyzing long-term data from the microcell X treatments, She noticed something extraordinary in the cellular scans of patients who had been treated multiple times. Their cells weren't just regenerating anymore. They were evolving. Each treatment seemed to unlock new capabilities. Enhanced radiation resistance improved oxygen efficiency faster. Neural processing increased physical strength. It was as if the human genome contained not just one set of hidden capabilities, but hundreds each, waiting for the right trigger to activate. The implications were staggering. If humans could continue to unlock new capabilities in response to challenges, there might be no limit to what they could become. They weren't just a species that could regenerate. They were a species that could adapt to any environment, overcome any threat, and evolve in real time. Standing in her new laboratory at the Galactic Regenerative Research Institute, built in orbit around Earth to accommodate researchers from across the galaxy, Lynn watched as the latest batch of test cells demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't have been possible, even by the standards of the past year. "Computer-run predictive analysis on cellular adaptation patterns," she commanded. "Analysis complete. Based on current progression rates test, subjects may develop space travel adaptation within 18 months, including natural radiation shielding, pressure adaptation, and extended life support independence." Lynn smiled. 18 months ago, humans had been dismissed as fragile biologicals. Now, they were on the verge of becoming naturally spacefaring. Computer expand analysis. If adaptation continues at current rates, what might be possible in 10 years? Insufficient data for accurate prediction. Current adaptation rates exceed all known biological models. Warning: some projections indicate capabilities that may be classified as transbiological. Transbiological. The term used for species that had evolved beyond the traditional boundaries of organic life, while maintaining their essential nature. Only 3 species in the galaxy had achieved such status, and all of them had taken millions of years to get there. Humans might do it in decades. Alan Zetor entered the laboratory, his quantum field interface crackling with excitement. Over the months of working with humans, he had developed what he called appreciation patterns, quantum fluctuations that indicated deep respect for the species he was studying. "Dr. Tran, I have news from the Argathian Council. They want to officially designate humans as a priority evolution species and request immediate establishment of joint research colonies." Lynn turned from her data screens. "And what does that mean exactly?" "It means they want to study human evolution in real time across multiple environments. Set up research stations on high radiation worlds, low-gravity moons, deep space platforms. Anywhere that might trigger new adaptations. The potential for understanding evolution itself." "Alan," Lynn interrupted gently, "are you asking if humans would be willing to become test subjects for galactic science?" The quantum physicist's field flickered with embarrassment. "When you put it that way, it sounds rather exploitative." Lynn laughed. "It does. But here's the thing. I don't think you're asking humans to become test subjects. I think you're asking us to become partners in the most ambitious research project in galactic history. The study of directed evolution." Directed evolution. Think about it. Human regeneration isn't random. It responds intelligently to threats, adapting in ways that are specifically useful for the challenge faced. That suggests consciousness, will, plays a role in evolutionary development. If we're right, then evolution isn't something that happens to a species. It's something a species can choose to do. Alan's quantum field stilled completely, the equivalent of holding one's breath. "Dr. Tran, are you suggesting that humans can consciously direct their own evolution?" "I'm suggesting that maybe that's what we've always been doing. We just didn't realize it." The conversation was interrupted by Mai Truk's voice over the laboratory's communication system. "Dr. Tran, you need to see this. We're getting reports from Earth's surface." Lynn activated the main display, which immediately filled with news feeds from around the planet. Reports were coming in from every major city. People who had received microcell X treatments were demonstrating new capabilities without any additional enhancement. A construction worker in New Tokyo was lifting beams that should have required mechanical assistance. A deep-sea researcher near the Mariana Trench was staying underwater for impossible lengths of time without breathing apparatus. A mountain rescue team in the Himalayas was operating at altitudes that should have been lethal without supplemental oxygen. "They're adapting to their environments," Lynn whispered. "Not just healing from injury, adapting to whatever challenges they face in daily life." The implications were beyond staggering. If humans could adapt not just to extreme threats, but to any environmental pressure, if they could evolve in real time to meet whatever challenges they encountered. "Alan," Lynn said slowly, "I think your people are going to get their research project. But not because we're test subjects, because we're about to become something the galaxy has never seen before." "Which is?" Lynn looked out through the laboratory's viewing port at the Earth below, where millions of people were going about their daily lives, unaware that they were participants in the most extraordinary evolutionary leap in galactic history. A species that doesn't just survive in the universe, a species that makes the universe adapt to us. 1 year later, the Galactic Alliance held an unprecedented ceremony in the newly constructed Earth Orbital Assembly Complex. Representatives from over 200 civilizations gathered to witness something that had never happened before: the induction of a species, not just as a member of galactic civilization, but as its appointed guardians of biological evolution. Dr. Lynn Tran, now director of the Transgalactic Institute for Regenerative Evolution, stood before the assembly, wearing formal robes that seemed to shift and adapt to the lighting. Fabric woven from enhanced human cellular material that responded to environmental changes. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carried to every corner of the vast assembly hall. "1 year ago, many of you laughed when humans claimed capabilities beyond our apparent limitations. Today, I stand before you not to boast of our achievements, but to share them." She gestured, and the assembly hall's display systems activated, showing real-time feeds from across the galaxy. Humans were working alongside alien species in environments that should have been lethal. The ammonia storms of Kepler 442b, the radiation fields around Proxima Centauri, the crushing pressures of deep space construction projects. What you're seeing isn't the result of technology or genetic modification. It's the result of what humans do naturally. When faced with challenges, we adapt, we evolve, we overcome. And we've learned to do it consciously. Senator Krikstal, whose bioelectric aura now pulsed with patterns indicating deep respect, stepped forward. "Director Tran, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, we formally recognize humanity not as junior partners in galactic civilization, but as senior advisors in the field of biological evolution. Your species has achieved in 2 years what most take millions of years to accomplish." The assembly erupted in the multi-species equivalent of applause, harmonic chimes from crystal beings, color pulses from energy forms, bioelectric displays from the Argathians, and countless other expressions of approval. But Lynn held up her hand for silence. "Senator Krikstal, honored delegates, I appreciate the recognition, but I want to be clear about something. What you've seen from humans isn't unique to our species. It's potential that exists in all biological life. We've just learned how to unlock it." The assembly fell silent. "The microcell X process works on human physiology because it activates dormant genetic sequences. But every species carries dormant potential. Every civilization has capabilities they haven't discovered yet. What we're offering isn't human superiority. It's a roadmap for universal evolution." Dr. Envek, who had become one of the project's most enthusiastic supporters, stepped forward. "Director Tran, are you suggesting that the regenerative capabilities demonstrated by humans could be replicated across other species?" "I'm not suggesting it, Dr. Envek, I'm proving it." The assembly hall's displays changed, showing footage from research stations across the galaxy. Argathian volunteers demonstrating enhanced bioelectric capabilities. Crystal beings developing new harmonic resonance patterns. Even synthetic species discovering ways to evolve their base programming. Over the past year, we've worked with volunteers from 37 different species. The process is different for each one. What works for human biology won't work for Argathian quantum consciousness or crystalline harmonic structures. But the principle is the same. Every species carries potential beyond their current expression. Alan Z. Tor, whose quantum field now displayed patterns that indicated permanent partnership bonds, added, "The research has shown that evolution isn't something that happens over millions of years. It's something that can be triggered consciously, directed purposefully, and achieved within individual lifetimes." Director Tran hasn't just revolutionized human biology. She's revolutionized our understanding of what life itself can become. The ceremony concluded with the establishment of the Universal Evolution Accords, a treaty that committed every member civilization to sharing knowledge about biological and consciousness development. Earth became the headquarters for galactic evolution research. But more importantly, humanity became the teachers for a new kind of civilization. One based not on the assumption that some species were superior to others, but on the understanding that every form of life carried unlimited potential. As the delegates departed for their home worlds, many carrying enhancement protocols adapted for their species, Lin stood in the observation deck of the assembly complex, looking out at the star field that had once seemed so vast and intimidating. Mai Truk joined her now, wearing the insignia of Chief Technology Officer for the Universal Evolution Project. Dr. Tran, the first wave of interspecies colonies has been approved. 12 different species working together on adaptation research. The Argathians are excited about developing quantum biological consciousness. The Crystalline Collective wants to explore harmonic evolution. Even the Silicon species are interested in developing biological interfaces. Lin smiled. And humans? Humans are where we've always been, adapting to whatever comes next. Through the observation port, they could see the construction platforms for humanity's next project, Deep Space, exploration ships designed not for short-term missions, but for multi-generational journeys to galaxies beyond their own. Ships crewed by humans who could adapt to any environment they encountered, evolve to meet any challenge they faced, and help other species unlock their own unlimited potential. "You know what the best part is," Lin said, watching the construction lights twinkle against the starfield. "What's that?" "A year ago they called us fragile. Today they're asking us to teach them how to be strong. But the truth is, we were never fragile at all. We were just undiscovered." Mai Truk nodded, then asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. "So what happens now? We've revolutionized galactic civilization, united dozens of species in cooperative evolution, and proven that biological potential is limitless. What's the next challenge?" Lin pointed toward the edge of the visible galaxy, where long-range sensors had detected signs of another galactic cluster. One that appeared to be entirely synthetic, populated by machine intelligences that had never encountered biological life. "Well," she said with the same smile she'd worn when facing down the Galactic Alliance's skepticism, "I heard there's a whole civilization out there that thinks biology is obsolete. They believe that consciousness can only reach its full potential when freed from organic limitations." Mai Truk started to laugh. "Let me guess. You want to prove them wrong." "Not wrong," Lin corrected. "Just incomplete. I want to show them what's possible when biological and synthetic evolution work together. After all, the universe is big enough for everyone to reach their potential." As they watched, one of the exploration ships completed its final systems check and began moving toward the edge of the solar system. Its crew of adapted humans, ready to make contact with civilizations beyond anything their galaxy had ever imagined. The age of fragile humanity was over. The age of unlimited potential had begun. And somewhere in the vast cosmos, new challenges waited to unlock capabilities that no species had ever dreamed possible.